My dad went on a work trip a few years back, and I noticed that the grass was getting pretty long. I decided I wanted to do him a favor and cut it, since he's normally the one who has to cut it. And I wasn't really that experienced with the lawnmower, and neither was my mom. Because of this, I had to use the directions, and I wasn't really good at it. I wasn't quite aware of how a lawnmower works, and I didn't know that it wasn't okay to run your lawnmower over wood chips and rocks. And, unsurprisingly, the lawnmower broke. My dad was somewhat upset, but he was happy that I just wanted to do something that was nice for him. And we ended up getting a new lawnmower, and nothing was really, and the problem wasn't really that bad. And this shows that even though I had good intentions, I ended up doing something bad that caused trouble to me and my family. Which leads us into today's quote, which is good men mean well. We don't always end up doing good men mean well. We don't always end up doing well, by Isaac Clarke. I take this to mean that all people are capable of making mistakes, even if they really do intend to do something that they believe is good. This can be demonstrated through 3 points. First, through the story of Star Wars. Second, through the popular short story The Scarlet Abyss. And finally, through the popular literature series The Hunger Games. Moving on to our first point, we'll take a look at Star Wars and how Obi-Wan Kenobi, even though he tried to train Anakin, it ended up being disastrous as Anakin ended up becoming Darth Vader. When Obi-Wan Kenobi first discovers Anakin as a child, he realizes that Anakin is extremely strong with the Force. He ends up getting permission by the Jedi Council and decides to train Anakin to become a future Jedi. However, Anakin shows early signs of unpredictability and becoming very angry. However, Obi-Wan Kenobi believes that Anakin has the potential to be a strong Jedi, so he continues to train him. And as many of you know, Anakin ended up becoming Darth Vader, one of the most evil Sith Lords of all time. This shows that while Obi-Wan Kenobi did have good intentions and just wanted Anakin to become a great Jedi leader, it ended up being disastrous for him and the entirety of the galaxy, as he ended up bringing one of the most evil people in all existence to come about, and ended up oppressing millions of people throughout the Star Wars universe. This shows that what makes good people is not necessarily the outcome, but what they intend. And while Obi-Wan Kenobi did intend to do something good, it ended up backfiring tremendously, showing that Obi-Wan Kenobi isn't necessarily a horrible person, but rather he just failed at training Anakin as he should. Moving on to our second point, we'll take a look at the popular short story The Scarlet Abyss. The Scarlet Abyss is a story about a little boy and his older brother. The younger brother is born with a disability. This prevents him from being able to run and sometimes even walk. The boy's older brother thinks that he's capable of running, and he wants to train his younger brother to be able to run and play with all of his friends before school starts. So the older brother pushes his younger brother more and more. He starts with just getting his younger brother to walk a few feet, and then he tries to get his younger brother to walk a mile or two. But then he begins to force his brother to do more and more and more. And while the older brother was not bad intention, as he really just wanted his brother to be able to run and play with all the other kids, he ended up pushing his younger brother too far, as eventually his younger brother, after being forced to run a while, ends up internally bleeding to death in his legs because of his medical condition. This shows that while the older brother was overall a good person and didn't have bad intentions, he ended up making mistakes and pushed his younger brother too far, which ended up causing disastrous consequences and for his younger brother to pass away. The older brother feels guilty about this his entire life and is very regretful, showing that even sometimes very good people are capable of making disastrous mistakes, proven by the Scarlet Abyss as to how that relates to our quote. Moving on to our final point, we'll take a look at the strategy that the British used during World War II, which was appeasement. During World War II, Britain and Germany had many peace talks, and they agreed to let Germany at first just have Austria and Czechoslovakia. Eventually, that turned to Poland, and then eventually, even France. While Britain was good intentioned and ultimately they just wanted to make peace with Germany, they ended up pushing it too far and let Germany take way too much of Europe, and it ended up letting Germany take way too much of Europe. This shows that while Britain was good intentioned at first, as they just wanted to make peace and let Germany be, it ended up backfiring on them, as they gave Germany precious time to become much too powerful and let the war drag on for much longer than it should. This relates to our point by once again ultimately showing that good people and good countries are capable of doing bad things. But this doesn't mean that they are bad people. It simply means that they just made mistakes. Proven by Britain in this point. In conclusion, I've shown that the quote, Good Men Mean Well, We Don't Always Do Well by Isaac Clarke means that all people are capable of making mistakes, and that doesn't necessarily mean that they are bad people, proven in 3 ways. First, through the story of Star Wars and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Second, through the short story The Scarlet Abyss. And finally, through British appeasement during World War II. And even through me when I first damaged my dad's lawnmower without his permission.